Mark Moreno. I am a professor of architecture at Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan. When I think about it, um, I worked at my dad's restaurant for 18 years, and it's a part of me. And being a part of a big family, 8 children, is also a huge part of why that place means so much to me. Um, I've had some great jobs, but teaching has always been the one that has given me the most professional reward. I've worked at a number of offices, never being totally satisfied that the work was good enough, or the environment was good enough, or that I was learning enough, or that I was free enough. In teaching, there's a lot of flexibility. I had a job where the boss said, "I'm not paying you to think. I'm paying you to do this." And I lasted at that job about 3 weeks. I didn't like it, and I quit. I worked for an architect who kept me at the work from about 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock when I arrived until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I was the only one in the office, and he had left at 6, and he would call me with new things to do. "Oh, I'd like you to do this and this and this," and I was the newest employee, and I felt like I was being, what's the word used? And so on the day that I was deciding to quit, he called and he said he didn't need my services anymore. I think he sensed that I wasn't really happy there. My career path has always been, from the time I was in elementary school, I knew it was the logical conclusion that I would go to junior high, and then I would go to high school, and it was equally logical that I would go to college. And I just went, and I got to the registration office, and I didn't know what major I was going to pursue. And the person at the registrar's office said, "Well, you have to pick a major." And I looked at the list, and I had really not a clue. I hadn't looked at this long, big picture of where my life was headed. I was just following my life. And I knew that my sister had studied some architecture, and my brother had drafting classes, and I liked drafting. And so the counselor probably said, "Well, how about architecture?" And I said, "Okay, so I'll do architecture." And from the first course that I took with Anthony Antoniadis, I never thought about it again. Architecture was the thing. There was a point in my undergraduate education when I realized something about the childhood dream that I had. And the childhood dream was always, I think I assumed that I would be a teacher. I always assumed that I would teach in the public school system, but the architecture degree plan wasn't about learning how to teach. It was about becoming an architect. And so I decided, okay, my career has taken a different turn. It's now I'm going to be an architect. And it took me a little bit of adjusting, but I didn't abandon the path. I just kind of kept moving forward because that's in my nature. After graduate school, I worked in maybe 7 different offices, all of which paid the bills, but they weren't rewarding in the same ways that I had imagined that they would be. And I decided when one of my bosses, I was following him down the hallway, and he was speaking with a raised and aggravated voice about the people that were working under me. I had 3 or 4 draftsmen working for me, and this boss said, "We have to get people in here on the weekends. We got to get them in here after. We got no more of this 50 hours a week stuff. We've got to, we've got to get people in here." And they were salaried employees. They made a set amount of money, and at that time I was working 51 hours a week, 52, maybe 53, and I thought that was sufficient. I had a young daughter and new wife, and wanted to have a life. And when I sensed that he wasn't valuing the time that we were putting in, I realized it's time to seek a different alternative. So I went back to my the dean at my school, UTA, and asked him if he knew of anybody that was hiring. And he asked me, "Do you have aspirations of teaching?" And I said, I always have. I always thought that I had, but I don't know that I'm ready to teach architecture because I think I need a little more experience. He said, "You're ready. Here's an application. Here's an advertisement for Texas A&M. There are 2 positions open. You need to call. I'll write a letter for you." And so he was really supportive. He wrote a letter and went down to Texas A&M and was hired on the spot. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. I'm now a teacher, and it was a different mindset. But 3 weeks later, I had to be in the classroom teaching. And he told me my resume landed on his desk at the exact right time. So in some ways, this is fate. This is what this is what following that path and allowing the path to carry you has done for me. And just trusting that things work out for the ways and the reasons that they need to work out. One of our students here at Andrews, his name is Marcel. He was a 4th-year student, and he was a leader in the organization called the AIAS, the American Institute for Architects student chapter. And he asked the faculty a question, but first gave a report. There are students who think they may not want to pursue licensure. There are students who think that they may not want to finish architecture school, or they're wondering if they're in the right career path. They have a lot of questions, and they're not sure about what the process is for licensure. And so he asked the faculty here, could you develop a series of courses or a series of lectures that identified how does the internship program work? How does the licensure process work? Can you help us with developing portfolios? What does the exam look like for licensure? And these are things that we do already. Maybe he didn't know that. To some degree, we do those kinds of things. But I was reading between his lines in his letter, and I realized and suspected that these students were worried that they'd wasted 3 or 4 years of their life. And so my response to him was, I think the faculty would be happy to make those lectures, but I would like to make a lecture that speaks to all of the different paths, career paths that one could take with a degree in architecture. And so I developed a lecture, and I delivered it a couple of weeks later, and began with, what are your childhood dreams? What is that thing that you always assumed that you would be? Even if it wasn't a dream, as in my case, what did you always envision yourself being? And hold on to that. Not that you have to achieve it, but it might inform what you do later. And in this lecture, I identified probably 20 or more career paths that people can take um, with an architectural degree. And in that list of 20 or so careers, I highlighted probably 10 or 12 um, career jobs like photography or graphic design or interior design or construction. And I highlighted all of those areas where I myself have made money doing those things. I didn't ever fashion myself as an interior designer or as a contractor or as a photographer, but those are areas, especially graphic design. I do posters for the school, and I love this kind of stuff. I love the arts, and I love construction. And but it illuminated for me that this degree is really quite broad. You don't have to become somebody who sits in an office and designs buildings all day. Um, the degree plans that I had and in that